Turnkey with Morgan Francis, sponsored by Integrity Roofing.
Welcome into Turnkey on Queen City News Plus, your go-to show for everything real estate in the Carolinas. We dive into the latest market trends, do's and don'ts of the industry, and provide expert advice on navigating this dynamic landscape that we call home. And just announced, the HGTV dream home for 2026 is this waterfront escape on Lake Wylie. And today we are joined by Brian Patrick Flynn, the designer of this beautiful home. Brian, thank you so much for coming on Turnkey.
Hi.
This is just a gorgeous home. I would love, before we get into kind of the design elements of it, would love to hear just a little bit more about you before HGTV. What was your life before kind of designing homes for the show?
It's a really unique background for me because I went to school for television and film. I went to the Art Institute of Fort Lauderdale, where I'm from. I'm from South Florida. And I always wanted to work in the capacity of art direction, prop styling, decoration, etc. And when I was in college, people would always ask me what my dream job was. And it was kind of a cross between interior design and TV. And my dream was to be the art director on this MTV series called The Real World. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do. I remember The Real World.
It's a very specific time in history. It was the late 90s, early 2000s. And which is coincidentally, the time that I was finishing up college is when HGTV Dream Home franchise came around in the late 90s. And it just so happened, there's this whole thing about like opportunity being when your experience meets, there's a whole saying about, anyway, my point is, if there was a perfect job out there for me as a practicing interior designer and production designer, when this came around about 10 years ago, and I took over designing these homes, it was a perfect fit because I had already been designing spaces specifically for the camera, but on the weekends I was doing people's actual homes. So when I was tasked to start designing HGTV Dream Home back in 2015, it was like, hey, these are HGTV Dream Homes. Yes, they're houses, but they need to feel like homes. So we need these to resonate with people from all different backgrounds and taste levels and styles. So it's kind of was the perfect job for me. It really was.
It sounds like it was really the perfect marriage. And am I doing the math correctly? And you were working essentially 7 days a week?
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm 49. Yeah, like I'm 49 now, but like in my late 20s, my early 30s, I kind of made myself this promise. I live in Atlanta, but then I lived in LA and then I came back to Atlanta, specifically for HGTV Dream Home. But I was so used to those when you work in production, it is an everyday thing. So like when you work in a movie or you're on a commercial, it might be 47 straight days of work, and that's just how it goes. And now, as a new dad with a 1.5-year-old at home and only having a 4.5-hour drive from Atlanta to Charlotte has made this dream home so easy.
Yeah, it's almost like, I know you don't have a part in like selecting where the locations are, but it's almost like it was just perfectly drawn up for you. How did I know you mentioned you got linked up with HGTV decades ago, but was that like an audition process, or how did that kind of play out?
It was 16 years ago, so it was 2009.
Okay.
The very end of 2009, right, the early 2010. And what had happened was the economic downturn came around, and all these interior design magazines were folding left and right because the advertisers were pulling out and people were losing their homes. And up until that time, I had been working behind the scenes in the world of like home improvement shows. I was a director and a producer and a writer behind the scenes. That's how I know all the specifications about how you get something ready. You properly put together the production schedule. As far as the opportunity, what had happened was when blogs used to be a thing, like in 2007 to like 2013, I started hiring professional interiors photographers to shoot every single space that I was doing for these clients on the weekends, whether it was a DIY kids playhouse or whether it was refreshing kitchen cabinets. But I took it all very seriously, and I treated it just as an interior design firm would. To have a $7 million house photographed, I would do a room that had a $3,000 decorating budget and pay somebody to properly photograph it. Anyway, long story short, I was so excited I was going to be taken seriously as an interior designer, and then all the magazines went away. But what happened at the same time was HGTV and HGTV.com were ahead of the trend before Pinterest and before social media. And they were kind of like, you know what, we need to have some original homes and spaces that we have beautifully shot and prop styled and art directed. And so what happened was they were looking for a guy at the time that could design the spaces and then also art direct them and do the floral and do like the holiday decorating and then also capture it also. It really was kind of like a job that was meant for me. So it was a once in a lifetime opportunity, but I would say for relevance for people out there who are hoping to one day, work with HGTV, if you could do it, it's a breadth of style. So if you are somebody, whether you're a builder or a realtor or a home stager,
Mhm.
if you can do a breadth of different styles, that is a huge a major plus, because if you just do one particular aesthetic again and again, it doesn't appeal to a wide audience. So with
Right.
HGTV Dream, you know what I mean? With
Well,
with
yeah,
every
because like you're not always going to be in the Carolinas for the HGTV Dream Home, and how many have you done over the years?
11. And
11.
so what I have to take into consideration, and I love talking about this because it's kind of like inside baseball. I'm always afraid I'm boring other people to tears, but every
No, I
single
love
one.
hearing it.
Okay, good. So there's the vernacular. There also has to do with like the medium income of that area. Like if all of a sudden if I'm doing, let's say, a beautiful house in Santa Fe, and all of a sudden a lot of the people in Santa Fe have like $20,000 sofas, that's not really relatable. You know what I mean? So you have to take into consideration what makes a house feel like a livable home where little kids can run around if a person who wins the house has kids or dogs. So the things that come into consideration are like where how it sits, where the sun hits at what time of day, what
Mhm.
kind of yard we have. Basically, is the view visible from the minute you approach the property? Like with HGTV Dream Home 2020, with HGTV Dream Home 2026, the minute you pull up to the lot, you are seeing nothing but a view of the lake behind you. So what was
Well,
important to me.
yeah, and you're talking about on the lake. The sunset is everything. I mean, I know water activities are fun, and this house is, we'll get into it obviously, but double decker dock there is pretty cool. But you want to be able to, some people are want to see the sunrise, they want to enjoy their coffee and watch the sunrise. Others want a beautiful sunset. It looks like this one's on a peninsula. Maybe it has both. Which way is this one facing?
So it is on a peninsula. It is far. God, I spent so much time in that house. I should know what direction it's facing. We usually get the most. The sun, since the sun is super intense in the middle of the morning, I think that means that we get the best sunsets, which makes me think it's probably Sunshine State uses. I think it might be east facing.
Okay.
But to answer your question, the reason for the two-story dock is specifically for what you had just mentioned. The sunsets and the sunrises are beautiful. So the second tier of the dock has glass paneling, so it's completely unobstructed. The lower level does have a ceiling or a roof, and it's perfect for like dining. So when you are there early morning or late at night, the top deck is the best place to be because you just feel like you're out in nature, nothing is near you. But in the mid mornings or lunchtime, nothing beats having lunch on the covered part of the dock because you're free from the sun. You get to see all the waves come and crash. There's actually also the sea life. There's so many. Well, obviously, there's a ton of birds, but there's fish almost everywhere you look, and it's fun to see the turtles swimming around. But that two level dock to me is the most vernacular thing about the house on Lake Wylie. Is I think the people who drive out there on the weekends from Charlotte, they want to have a water life, and that's what you get on that dock. Like I think anytime I wasn't actually working on the interior, my team and I were out with our laptops on the dock.
We're talking with Brian Patrick Flynn, the designer for the HGTV Dream Home here in the Carolinas. Brian, are you able to say exactly where this home is located?
I'm allowed to, but it's really kind of a hard thing to explain because it's on Lake Wylie,
Hmm.
and which I learned after being there for so long. Lake Wylie is both North and South Carolina.
It
It's not in
is.
a it's not a marked development, so it isn't something that would be easy to explain. It's most of the houses that are out there in this area are just it's kind of like unmarked spaces, which makes it even more spectacular. And the other thing is the architecture. Every single lot has a completely different style of house on it than the one next door. And what I really cared about with this one is because Lake Wylie does feel somewhat suburban because you're so close to like South End and Dilworth and all
Right,
that.
right.
Like, I do love that you're driving up to this simple house that has an almost black exterior with this neutral stone, which does look similar to some of the houses you'd find in the beautiful suburban neighborhoods of Charlotte. But right behind you is this huge lake. So it's incredible because you do feel like you're away, like far away from the city, but you're not. It's 20 to 25 minutes by car, and you are totally free from all the noise and all the rush of the city.
And I know that you are just a few hours down the road in Atlanta, but while you were here, did you get a chance to kind of experience Charlotte, or were you pretty much, come in, go to the house, do your design stuff, and then head home? How much time did you spend? Because you mentioned Dilworth and South End, so you know the area.
So what I usually do when I'm doing an HGTV Dream Home is I try to, for the months that I'm there, meeting with the architects and meeting with the builders when it's just an empty lot, I do my best to just get in my car and just drive and experience it all.
Hmm.
What I fell in love with so is that I started coming there roughly in May, and then I was there for a good almost like 2 month span from September through October. Uh, the areas that I really got to know. So no, I did spend a good amount of time on Lake Wylie. There's 2 or 3 restaurants. Gosh, there's one spec.
Yeah,
I'm forgetting the
Drift
name. That's the one.
and
So there's
let me see, not Docks. What is it
it's
called?
close. Yes, it is something like that.
Yeah.
It's right next door.
Hmm.
So
I know what you're talking about.
so around Lake Wylie, there's all different types of dining. So the one that I love the most was Drift because I love the fact that it's got these nano doors that open all the way up. So even though you are dining inside, you feel like you're right there on the water. And then I
Right.
forget the name of the other one that's nearby, but it's more of a pub or a bar. It's
Right.
also remarkably fun. But what I really fell in love with was South End and Dilworth. And the reason being is I spent the gym that I was going to was, and I learned the difference between uptown and downtown. So the gym that I was spending a lot of time in was in uptown. And then when I discovered that South End has all these pedestrian areas that are all along the train tracks where the light rail is, I fell in love with Dilworth and the South End, so I started staying there for my entire stay. And anytime I wasn't working on the house, if I had a day off or two, I loved that I didn't even need my car. If I was if in Dilworth, I needed my car more than I would have needed it in the South End. But in the South End, I loved that everything is walkable and it's all these old historic buildings and it's so close to Lake Wylie. It was like a 22-minute drive.
Yeah, it's nice that, we're right on the border of South Carolina, so it doesn't take long even to get to South Carolina and vice versa if you're trying to get North Carolina. I think the restaurant you were thinking of was Papa Doc's was the full name.
That's the one.
Yes,
Yeah,
there we
yeah.
go. I had a little brain lapse there. Brian, the design of this home, it is beautiful, and I'm excited that we can finally kind of reveal the interior. You did such a wonderful job, but how do you come up with these ideas?
So the easiest way to explain what it's like to design an HGTV dream home is I'm doing this along with a handful of our partners who are brands who know houses inside and out. This is their business. This is what they do. And I am also equal parts using my brain to think of what our viewers want to see, don't want to see, or what's missing that they're looking for. So the one thing that I've learned over the years from all my executives at HGTV is that everybody loves a neutral home. And there's a difference between going neutral in a contractor way where you're playing it super safe and you're using a cream or a beige and you're doing specifications that are just remarkably general that nobody seems to have a bad opinion or good on.
Yeah, like
But with an
a
HG
spec home, right?
yeah, yeah. And then you do what you want once you move in. But with an HGTV Dream Home, the idea is somebody's going to move into this and not have to do anything. They're going to move into the house and bring their own clothes. Everything is already ready for them. So as far as the way that this one was designed was I have to think about not obstructing a view. The view is so spectacular out all the rooms along the back of the house. I decided to keep all the main spaces super neutral. So they are painted these 2 different shades that are like in the taupe, cream, camel world. One of them is called Universal Khaki. And what I really love about the keeping things neutral, because they're not totally white, there's some warmth there. And it's so neutral that no matter who wins an HGTV Dream Home, when they start to bring in their own things and keepsakes, it'll go with it. But the other part of it is the rooms that don't necessarily look out to the incredible views. That's where I experiment with color. So the dining room, which is just off of the entryway, which is where it has like the no swimming sign or says go jump in the lake,
Right.
that has a very unique color scheme of a terracotta on the wainscot and then a teal above. A color scheme I've never really used before. And then we also have these kind of turquoise aquas in some of the bathrooms. That's on purpose. I'm also trying to show most of the HGTV viewers how to play with paint because it's the easiest way to transform a room and you can do it yourself. So we want something neutral. We want something modern. We want something classical like the kitchen. We want something that's kind of rustic. So we appeal to people with all different taste. And that's really the format for kind of putting together this design. And then I also have to think of how it ties into the lifestyle. And because being out on the lake is such a huge part of it. That's why we have the two-level dock, and that's why we've used a bunch of performance fabrics and very easy to take care of rugs and floors as well.
For people who might not understand, they're like, wow, they're building this huge house and then they're just giving it away. There are a lot of sponsorships that help to pay for it, correct? That's kind of how HGTV manages to build the home and then basically give it away, right?
Yeah, we've had like incredible relationships for going almost 30, for even probably 30 years now with some of our favorite brands. So what happens is we work together to find out exactly like, hey, this is the locale we're looking at.
Mhm.
Do you happen to have materials that are specifically meant for, let's say, this region of the United States? Whether that's outdoor products, sometimes it could be paint colors, it could be furniture styles, it could be lighting, it could be backsplashes, it could be countertops or cabinets, or even outdoor furniture. So, or even composite decking. So yeah, a lot of it has to do with these people who have been working with us for so long, and they're all tried and true and trusted, and so it's just a really good marriage between all of our partners and the network. And then the next thing you know, you have this house that millions of people are looking at, and as opposed to just looking at it, somebody truly will live in it one day, and they also win $100,000 on top of the house itself. So it's not a bad gig. I kind of really love it. But also at the end of the day, it's kind of cool to see a human being actually have such a life changing situation by winning a house and money.
Right. Brian, we're looking at some of the beautiful pictures of the inside of the home. How do you balance trying to create something that is really special but also appeals to the masses? And how do you deal with the pressure of designing a home that's going to be viewed by millions of people?
Because nowadays the majority of I would say millennials, Gen Z, and some Gen Xers consume a lot of their media on their phones and on their tablets.
Mhm.
Social media comes in and digital media comes into to play a lot. So there's two parts to the answer. Because I never know who's going to win the HGTV Dream Home, I can't necessarily go really bold in a lot of the spaces because it's very specific to do a very bold minimal or maximal style. So what I try to do is the majority of the spaces I like to keep them somewhat neutral, so somebody living in any part of the United States can imagine themselves living with that color scheme and that type of furniture. But then for people like myself who love to push the envelope and try something different, for example, one of the bedrooms upstairs, we have a suite where the ceiling is painted this beautiful shade of a brownish red called cordovan, and then it has a Jack and Jill bathroom attached. It's a shade of terracotta. What I do is I try to keep those more secondary spaces that are usually shared just by one or two people. I let those be the ones where I can experiment with art, experiment with the color, and experiment with the furniture styles. But even here at the entryway, I like to keep the majority of the things in the main spaces just kind of evergreen for all different tastes and backgrounds to appreciate. And if it turns out whoever wins HGTV Dream Home wants to add some of their own things to these spaces, in the main rooms, if they're neutral, it's so easy for any of their existing belongings to be incorporated. But I do play around with color and pattern and styles in a lot of the bedrooms and sometimes hallways and mudrooms.
So, out of what we're seeing here in the pictures, obviously it's staged, right? So, do people get to keep, essentially everything that it's staged with? I see, that you have, beds and furniture. What of the HGTV dream home do people, um, get to keep the furniture, and what do they need to bring of their? Obviously, they're not keeping the clothes, right?
Well, the thing that's really unique about the way the HGTV Dream Home is designed is every single thing that you see in it in the photos remains and it's part of what you receive. So yeah, you win the fully furnished house. You also win a check for $100,000. And when I say the fully furnished house, I mean a lot of these drawers that you're not looking into are completely packed with all of your kitchen essentials. A lot of
Oh wow.
the drawers that are in the bedrooms, there's some basic things like white t-shirts. And even in the closets, we've already styled and staged things with like basic white t-shirts or things you can use. So when I say that somebody can win HGTV Dream Home and simply get on a plane and bring a suitcase of clothes, that is legitimately, oh, maybe their phone and their own laptop. That would that would be the only thing they need because we have even chosen the toothbrushes. So my entire team
Okay.
of stylists, we're very particular because we know the house is going to be meticulously photographed and it's going to have millions of people looking at it. So we are even months before we're in that house deciding what toothbrush is going to go into what toothbrush holder in what room. So you don't even need to bring you do need to bring toothpaste. I don't think we have that in the house, but yes, you get every single thing in the house. But I would say bring toothpaste, bring your laptop, and bring your phone.
Okay, down to the details, which it makes sense based off of kind of how you described with your background and everything, working in TV, that you think of those details, and that's important. I think sometimes with a lot of homes these days, you see that people don't pay attention to the details. You worked with a local builder. What was it like working with not builders here in Charlotte, and how does that relationship kind of progress over the course of the construction?
What's really unique about working with Knott's Builders is the fact that Michael Knotts was born and raised on Lake Wylie. So his family's property is almost visible from the property that HGTV Dream Home 2026 is on.
Oh,
And the
wow.
fact that this guy grew up there, his buddies grew up there, they're still friends. We're working with somebody who knows this entire area inside and out. He pretty much knows everybody. He's kind of like the unofficial mayor. And then his wife is also a practicing decorator. So the experience for us with Knott's was incredible because he was super duper hands-on with everything. And so much that he even offered for Emily, his wife, to on certain days when we were finishing up like our floral, in the rooms and the florals going into the bases. She was very eager to want to kind of just come and see the end product, because a lot of times when you are married to or you're part of the family of a builder, you don't really get to see the house totally finished. You see it constructed, but you don't get to see it when it's totally furnished and everything is styled and the accessories are in. So it was super hands-on. I know that everybody at HGTV absolutely adored working with him. He was a dream. I had him on speed dial. Anytime we had a question for him, he would stop what he was doing to answer it. He even came over and taught myself and another one of my HGTV cronies how to properly fish. So I would say anybody in the area who's looking for a hands-on builder that understands Lake Wylie in and out, it would be Knott's.
All right, and where to catch the biggest fish, right? The bass and yeah.
Yes, and that actually does appear on the HGTV Dream Home 2026 special. There is a situation in which he is showing us how to properly fish, and it's
Really.
worth watching. Yeah.
That's cool. Okay, so you mentioned the special. When is the special? And for people who want to enter to hopefully someday win this dream home, what are the details of the sweepstakes?
So HGTV Dream Home airs on New Year's Day at 8 p.m. on HGTV. And then anybody looking to enter for a chance to win, that starts December 16th and
Okay.
ends on February 13th. And you can enter for a chance to win on hgtv.com and also foodnetwork.com.
And I already have people who saw one of my social media posts about the dream home message me saying, I enter that thing every single day. I hope I win this year. So a lot of people have already seen the home and are excited to enter the sweepstakes. Brian, thank you so much for coming on. Next time on Turnkey, we're actually going to have Knott's Builders on to discuss what it was like working with HGTV on this project. But Brian, appreciate you giving us some insight into the design element of it.
Of course, you're going to love talking to them. They're awesome.
All right. Thanks, Brian. And thanks you so much for everyone else out there watching Turnkey on Queen City News Plus. We'll see you next time.
Queen City News Plus. Just search Queen City News on your smart TV's app store.